So he fled with all he had and crossed the river. He headed for the hill country of Gilead.
Okay. Alrighty. So last week, review, I used kind of three ideas. There's the idea of what actually is happening, meaning Jacob is now ready to go. Remember, Jacob went to his father-in-law, I would say, in the context of years ago, not months, because there's this whole husband crop, or not crop, but herd husbandry that occurred. You know, this takes, you know, for you to apply and do something like this, it takes more than 1 year to do that, to build a herd over, you know, what would you call it? Genetics. You know, doing this whole thing of he was trying to create a herd, his herd. That took years. Well, you know, he wanted to go years ago, but he closed a deal in a Jacob kind of way to stay, to kind of build his base. I mean, I think this is all part of his strategy, but that's me. Well, now, the context of chapter 31 is the word on the street from Laban's sons is this guy, your son-in-law, is ripping dad off, and it was really irritating. Of course, this disturbed Jacob. He heard this. He saw how his father-in-law had now kind of turned against him and wasn't nearly as friendly and amiable. And so the word on the street is dad's getting ripped off. The word from Jacob, he went to his wives, who are the sisters, and said, your dad is angry with me, but look how he has abused me and abused us. And somehow he was able to convince the wives that is the truth. And the words from the sisters were, do as God has told you to do, which is basically pull up stakes and get out of Dodge. You know, this is all about getting out of Dodge. Well, Haran. So they're leaving. They're pulling up stakes, and it's just, this is the way life is, guys. You know, there's the cube here of what is can you guys see that? What is actually occurring? There's always what actually occurred, but there are all, because of our humanness and our the way we see things, the way we filter things, there's always these different perspectives on things. And this is what makes it so interesting of how we cast, how we see it in order to get what we want. That's my perspective. So, and then behind the whole thing, and we would think of God looking down, but really more correct, God is in our midst. God is very present. But the question then becomes, what does God think about all this? You know, Jacob, you're being bad, you're lying. Oh, you're not quite telling the truth here. You know, Laban here, the sisters here, everybody's got their stuff. Well, I'm one who believes that God is very loving, very understanding, and he's not doing that kind of thing. But he understands our humanness and our fallenness in this whole thing. So anyway, that was last time. And so this morning, what we want to look at is, you know, the journey. And here we are, we got the ability now to kind of zoom in on this thing. Look at there. Isn't that cool? And Haran is where they're, well, it's going to update here in a minute. Maybe. Well, it's blurry. So why do you think that's blurry?
Is that clear on your computer screen?
It's blurry on my screen. It's like it's not updating.
Okay.
Technology.
I'm used to looking at things like
Yeah.
that, Mike, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Would you interpret it for the rest of us?
You know, with a whiteboard, we didn't have to deal with these things, did we? But anyway, it's a little tilted.
We get the gist, we see the.
Yeah, well, the point is I'm
He had a
gonna,
ways to go.
what's that?
He had a ways to go.
Yeah, he had a ways to go. And see the yellow? Can you see the yellow thing there? That's about 60 miles, about 100 kilometers, 60 miles. And there's, you know, a little map, what they call it, a map scale on the map. And so I scaled it out. And to get from here, to get from this blurry Hayran here to the Euphrates River here, there's the distance, about 60 miles. And that's what I've got here. So, you know, they pulled up their city, kind of, well, their tent stakes, their little tent city, because they had quite an operation, you know, the Jacob Ranch, and pulled it all up and packed it all up and headed out about 60 miles. Well, then the text gives some really interesting little details about this whole thing as they pull out of Dodge or Hayran. And here it is. Rachel stole. You know, there's the verb. Rachel stole. And that's really where we're going to look at today. Why in the world would anybody steal the family idol? I think that's funny. I mean, why would you steal? We're going to look at that. But also, Jacob deceived. But there's all kinds of verbs that lead up to that in 17 through 21. He arose, he gathered, he called together. He did all of this stuff, and then he deceived. Well, we know Jacob deceived. We know that about Jacob. That's kind of what he does. And it all points to this whole idea. The key word in this text, in my opinion, is fleeing. They're fleeing. Now, what is fleeing? When you flee, when someone flees, what are they doing? Other than fleeing, what?
Leaving quickly.
Yeah, you're leaving quickly. Usually motivated by what? Fear. You know, generally, I would say by fear, guilt. Generally, a negative fleeing isn't it true? Fleeing. Now, you could flee for safety if you were under harm, but it's for either protection. Certainly negative. You're moving from, right? Isn't that true? You're trying to get away. You're trying to get away. Yes.
I think it was the context of an abused wife fleeing home. You don't sit down there and talk about it. You're not going to tell them I'm going. Your idea is get out before you know you're gone, because they'll do something to stop you.
Yeah. Right.
And so there's this combination. It's deception by its very nature. It's not fleeing. It's leaving.
Yeah.
Fleeing means I'm out of here before you can stop me.
Right.
And that's a huge issue.
And he's running. He's fleeing from, and he's going to. And where is he going to? In his head, where does he want to get?
Home.
Well, but in the text.
Back to father.
Well, in the text.
Gilead.
Yeah, guys, when I say in the text, it's really a good idea to look at the text.
And he set his face toward the
You guys are so
hill
funny.
of Gilead.
He's going to Gilead. Jeez.
He's going
You
to
know,
Gilead.
look here. What does it say?
Okay.
You guys are so.
Look at the screen, Gilead.
Gilead, look at the screen. Is that on the test?
Yes.
Okay, Jim, Gilead was the word I was looking for. Okay, Gilead, the hill country of Gilead. That's, northern Israel in the hill country. Why would he want to go to the hill country of Gilead? That's not where it's not home. Gilead is not home. Remember, home is Beersheba, which is south. But he wants to get to the hill country. Why would he want to get to the hill country?
Defend yourself there.
Yeah, or hide. You can hide in those canyons. Yeah, that's what I was thinking anyway. He wants to get to the hill country of Gilead, so he's got quite a journey. He's got several hundred miles here. So So the question before us this morning is, that is really interesting. Why in the world
What'd you do?
glitching out? Let's see, let's get to here. You can just talk among yourselves.
No, actually, there's these rounders. Diet is so
See,
much.
now look at there. See, now there it got blurry again. Oh, we're all trying so hard here. Now I'm going to try to get to the next slide. Okay, we got that one.
There we go.
There it is. Huh? At least it's still there. So the question is, why steal the household idol? And then look at this, you know, we got this little drawing here. There we go. There it is. There's the household idol. Who knows what it is? What is a household idol, guys?
Well, it's a
At the
god.
television?
It has huge value, or she would steal it. It's not just.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, what does it represent?
Their god. It's their link to who they believe is giving them good fortune.
What? Yeah, power, exactly. Power and protection. We got to keep this thing around because when we have this thing here, it gives us safety and security and protection and, you know, what we need. It is of value. It's, you know, I'm making it really silly, but it's something very important.
So that would be like the remote.
Yeah, that's a good, yeah. Yeah, you got, that is it, yeah.
He's right.
It's the remote. I should have, if I could have drawn that, that would have been funny, you know.
There's probably more to that than I think. Well,
Yeah.
the interesting thing is, I don't know if she's trying to take away the power of her dad so he can't get to them to basically protect them,
Yeah.
or take his protection because she doesn't necessarily trust the God of her husband.
Yeah, that's my head was going with that. Let's explore that a little bit. Because why would you do this? You know, why would anybody do this? So that's what we're going to ask.
Well, if you
And-
go back to verse 14, Rachel and Leah said to him, "Do we still have any portion or inheritance in our father's house?" So maybe she was taking
Yeah.
something to remember Daddy by.
Yeah, great observation. Yeah, let's look at it. I came up with two things, and they really dovetail with what's already been said. You know, we're asking the question, why would you steal the family idol? And of course, this is unbeknownst to Jacob. It's gonna be part of the story as we go, because I read ahead. So, number one is this problem of less than, and we've talked extensively about this whole idea. And the idea is, again, here's Rachel with her household idol that she's going to put in her duffel bag, and she sees herself, remember, less than. And because she sees herself as less than, she's got this internal motivation to always get bigger. Now, bigger can mean more powerful. It could be get to the same playing field. Remember, she is the one that was loved, but she didn't know she was loved because Leah had all the babies. And Leah, she was always trying to get one up on her sister. Isn't that true? Because if you see yourself as less than, then you always got to try harder to get one step higher. Okay? Yeah. All right. So,
She also only has one kid
yeah.
at this stage.
Um,
Yeah, Benjamin comes
And-
later. She
and it
does.
Joseph.
Joseph, yeah, she only
Yeah.
has one kid. Maybe she feels that this was the reason she got that kid. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. Oh, and then she had all the ones by the handmaids, but those are kind of.
Those are secondary.
Yeah. So the problem of less than is the first thing. Is the idea, this is one idea that I'm exploring this idea. Why would you steal the idol? Well, because the idol represents power and protection, and I need it so I can feel I have power and protection. That would be one reason to steal. Okay. Number two is here, and Arthur, this ties in with what I think. With what I think. I think there's a father wound here, and that's a technical term that I use, not coined by me. But notice the text. Are we not reckoned by him? Okay, you read the
14.
text prior,
Yeah.
and this is 15. This is the follow-up text that says, "Are we not reckoned by him as foreigners? For he has sold us." Okay, I'm deriving a wound. I think, in my opinion, that's woundedness. That's a realization that dad now thinks, our dad looks at us as foreigners. We are sold. He sold us out. He sold us to Jacob. We are now property of Jacob. We are not in his realm anymore. Something has changed, and I'm deriving a wound out of that.
You know, if that's the case, I believe you're right. That's also, in those days, and still some places, common practice. And as a lot, that means there's an awful lot of wounded women out there. I mean, there's still common practice. in some
To be
places.
sold.
To be sold, to be handed off. And if you run off with the wrong guy, there's honor killings. I mean, it dawns on you, there's gotta be a lot of wounded women out there thinking of themselves as chattel.
Well,
this isn't the only person this happens.
No, and I don't think you have to move out of our culture. I think there's just a lot of women and human beings that just, we view ourselves as less, as we're in disfavor, and we've got to do something in order to get back in favor. I think that's just part of the human condition. But in this case, when your own dad, so I'm looking at this as a woman.
In this case, it's a very much a male issue. Dad hands us over to our husbands. We're not his property. Now we're the property of our husbands.
Yeah.
That's a deep wound out there.
I think it is. So, thus, Rachel's action, tying it back into the two things, the less than and then the wound. Number one, I'm thinking the motivation behind this is possessing the idol. This is her reason for stealing the family idol, in my opinion. Possessing the idol will make me bigger, or we could put the term in more powerful, more protected. Because I'm looking at, why would anyone steal this? Okay. Well, there's a reason. Yes, sir.
Is it not so much what she or would gain as to take away the power from the one that she stole from?
Laban.
To lessen that power, of course, would give them more power, but I think she just was taking that tool away so it couldn't be used against her.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Charlie, I think that is really, could be the case. I put a second on here that really, again, connects with what you're saying, is possessing. You know, when you're hurt by someone, if you have received a wound, what if a person receives a wound, what is the natural tendency of that human being in relation to that person who inflicted the wound? To wound that. I mean, we don't have to look far. in our own experiences to say that, fire fights fire. And so if this is a father wound, which seems like the text says, could it be that she is stealing this to take the power away to inflict pain, to take the power away from her dad? Because that is something that he held very dear. Obviously, it's very important to the family. And so it's like the juggler to the Laban family. She is going for the juggler to take this away. Now, of course, when anyone is in a state in this mindset, you really don't think about the ramifications of dad coming after it. You just think about the moment of the steal and the satisfaction it is to take away the power. So, go
I
ahead.
got that image of a Norman Rockwell painting again, with the Cocker Spaniel and the steak in his teeth running from the grill, people chasing him. He doesn't care, he's got the steak in his
He's got the
after.
steak.
The
He's in the
steak.
moment. That is good. Yeah, that is, and we're much like that Cocker Spaniel.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just got the
We
steak.
can get the tar beat out of us, but we don't care. We
Yeah,
got the
yeah,
steak.
we got the steak. So those are the two ideas, and this is where I want to go with this. I was thinking about this, and I go, gee, and my question was, it's a wonder anybody makes it. We're talking about such common human interaction here. I remember as a kid, I was 4 years old, and I can remember it, 4 or 5, I remember it to this day, that we lived in Southern California on I Street in Ontario, 400 block of I Street. It was a very cool little place. Right next door were the Hollister family. They lived in a great big 3-story or 2-story house. And the guy's name was Scott Hollister, who was my age, Scotty Hollister. And Mr. Hollister put in a new swimming pool right over our fence. There was a 6-foot privacy fence, and there was a new outdoor pool. And Scotty said to me, "You don't get to swim in our pool." And it really torqued me off. Here's this, you could hear them splashing over the fence in a brand new pool there. And so what I did in my 4 or 5 year old mindset, in order to inflict pain, right? I don't get to swim, so I will inflict pain. So I set my wagon up, and I put my tricycle, I remember doing it, up on the wagon, and I got dirt clods, and I hauled up on the wagon, up on the trike. And I could remember, I still couldn't get to the top of the fence, but I started heaving dirt clods over. So what's so funny about this is, okay, then I took the wagon down and I put it all away. Well, Mr. Hollister visited Dad that evening, and Dad came to me and said, "Do you know anything about this?" "No." "What are you talking about?" Oh. Well, I needed to get bigger. See, I saw myself as less than. I was wounded from Scotty, and so I'm just trying to get even and inflict pain. It's the same story here with adults. And it's a wonder anybody makes it. So this is where I was thinking, is that this whole thing, the arrow pointing up, and the message in our heads. I think the basic message. This is what we're trying to overcome. This is what is being overcome through receiving the love of God and the gift of grace. This is the crux of it. You and I live in a world where our heads are constantly, I've got to improve, I've got to get better, I've got to get bigger, I've got to get more powerful, I've got to get more successful, I've got to have more more financial, I've got to have more security. This is the message that we are hearing and responding to constantly. Okay. The bottom arrow, the message that we get is, maybe this is a little harsh, but is a counter message from the top down. You are worthless. You are not powerful. You are not financially secure enough. Your kids are not doing what they should be doing because the neighbors' children are adults are becoming much more successful. Guys, all of these messages, it's about what you are not. And these two messages are working with tandem. And it's like this, these two messages are working, and you and I are caught in the middle. We live in the middle. It creates friction and tension. And that's where we live, and that's where life happens, is in this tension. And I'm asking the question, it's a wonder anybody makes it. Because we're caught in this, and we're constantly responding to these, like we see in the story. Who in the world, any sane person would go into Dad's house and steal the idol thinking they're going to get away with it? Well, who would set up a wagon and a trike and throw dirt clods over the fence and have think that when Dad asked, I could just say, I don't know. It just happened.
What's the end of that story, though?
Oh, my dad was, I didn't get a spank. He didn't. He was really compassionate. I lied to him, but he was really compassionate. I remember that. He says, basically, I don't blame you. He didn't say that, but I mean, the kid was, you can't swim in my pool,
that we got to get even. We believe we're above that now, but I think the test of that comes into that scripture where it says, "Mourn with those who mourn." We don't have a problem doing that, but rejoice with those who rejoice. When somebody who you're kind of jealous of wins the lottery, and when their kid gets the great job, or suddenly they have their fourth grandchild,
that's really
do you
the kicker.
rejoice with them.
Uh-huh.
And if you choose not, do you feel kind of happy when somebody stumbles because I knew they had a flaw? How do we receive that? It shows where we're at.
It really, really does. Oftentimes in our Christian context, we hear of a leader fall to some sort of sin. And there's kind of a deranged thing that can occur, that often occurs in us, is, I don't feel so bad now. Our thoughts are turned inward that, I must be doing pretty good then, because I haven't done that yet. And that's sad, but it shows the condition that we're in. It's beyond us. That's why it's not about trying to improve. It's about, as the text says here, it's only, can you guys see that? It's only by receiving the love of God. This is our only hope, and we as human beings tend to try everything else prior to this. Coming to a point where it is just by the love and the grace of God and my ability to receive this. And I thought of the text, Psalm 3:3, He is the lifter of my head. It's God who's the lifter of my head. When I'm getting beat down and the every message is that you're not good enough, you don't measure up, I don't have what it takes, this especially with guys, that if I'm able to receive that message, that for He is the lifter of my head, I don't have to lift my head up. He's the lifter. Why? Because He is my security. He is the place of my security. And those messages, can you just see how they're grayed out in the background? Can you see this here?
Yeah.
The purpose of that then is less than. The message of less than tends to go gray. it tends to fade. The tension tends to fade because now my security is not in trying to get better or bigger or more powerful, but it's in who God calls me as his son and who has made me wonderful in his sight, and that he is the lifter of my head. We don't have to steal the family idol to inflict pain, guys. We don't have to do that. I mean, Jesus says, okay, let's raise the bar a little bit here. I think of his opening phrase in his inaugural address in Matthew, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Isn't that, wow, how radical, how revolutionary is Jesus' message and example to us. That's it, guys. We'll hit it next week.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.